There are 4,315,275,402 Alabama football podcasts on the internet. And now you get to ignore every single one. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. Real talk from real fans. We gump to a standard around here. Recapping the Alabama Crimson Tide and college football from around the SEC and across the nation. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. And here are your hosts, Bill Sylvie, Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Bo Ganora.
Woo! Good morning, sports fans. How the heck are you? I'm doing just fine today. I am doing just absolutely great. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and the Alabama Crimson Tide won arguably one of the most epic comeback games ever in an Iron Bowl. I mean, ever. Let me start off this morning by asking you folks a question, not the trivia question. Nobody got that one last week, but we're going to address that at halftime. Don't worry. Let me ask you something, though. And my co-host, you can step in and answer this if you want. But how many of you folks out there rode the whole game out? How many of you sat there clutching your pillows, punching your Pat Dye therapy doll, saying, I'm going to ride this thing out to the bitter end. I'm going to watch every ugly minute of this. We're going to lose 10, possibly 13 or 17 to zip, and I'm going to watch every single second of it. Now, let me tell you this. I wouldn't blame you if some of you said, or if a lot of you said, not me, man. I turned that shit off. I went and I had Thanksgiving leftovers. I put up Christmas lights. I gave myself a pedicure. Whatever. Because there was a lot of times when I had to step away from that game. But regardless, if you rode that whole game out, you saw a miracle on the football field. And I said this last night in the Discord, and I'll say it again. This was our damn national championship game. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you, John, Bo?
Good morning.
Hey, boys. I'll tell you what. I'm not ready to put up Christmas lights yet. I'm tired of turkey, and I can't reach my toes, so I sit there and I watch the whole game.
Well, I did all of that. I had leftovers, put up a Christmas tree. I had to hold the puppy at the end because my wife was scaring her. Oh. And it was glorious.
I have to admit, and I was quiet the whole game. My wife and my daughter took an epic nap downstairs. So I came upstairs to my little media room and watch the game, and bad things would happen, and I would say things quietly to myself, but I didn't get loud. And right at the end, they woke up, came upstairs. What's going on? Auburn's winning 10-3, and there's only a minute left. Yes, and I didn't wake you up, did I? No. And then Alabama hit that pass, and I yelled, "Whoa!" And my daughter went, "Ah!" and started crying because I yelled a little bit too loud in that little room, and I had to go apologize the whole time they were flipping coins for overtime. I'm so sorry, sweetie. I got a little loud. I didn't mean to do that. I just got excited.
So you'll understand when you're older.
Yes, she will. She'll understand. But yeah, that's my story. That was the most frustrating game right up until it was the greatest.
Right on.
I'll tell you what. And we've been complaining. We've been complaining about Chris Owens all year. He does not belong out there at tackle. He needs to be at center. But we didn't. Our offense did not move the ball until we put him back in at right tackle, and he was able to make some blocks out there. And after that, we were finally able to move the ball again. Chris Owens, good on you, man. You had a good game. Glad you're there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Bo, you're awfully
I do
quiet.
have to.
Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
When is the last time you saw a personal foul for a guy playing without a helmet? Because
I
the
thought that
defender
was
had
a
knocked
little
his
bit.
helmet off.
Yeah. How does the helmet come off? I mean,
Yeah.
shouldn't there have been a foul on the other side as well? But I mean, the guy's supposed to stop playing. That's the rule. It sucks, but that's the rule.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a 15-yard penalty. That is
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, I guess by the
Insanely
letter of the law, it is. But yeah, no, it was it was actually quite entertaining once it's taken as a whole at my house the way the game went. But I was miserable for the first 58 minutes of that ball game.
Same.
So I'm just like putting lights on the tree. What happened? I couldn't even look at the TV. And I'm getting the play-by-play from my wife, who's trying to be, she's trying not to rub it in, but she can't help herself. And she's like, "Oh, I guess you got sacked again." It's like the inflection that she puts on her voice when she says that. And I'm like, "Oh crap, okay, here we go." And man, when they pulled it out at the end, I was just like, "Oh," and she's like, "Well, I figured we'd lose anyway." I'm like, "What?" It's like, you can't pull the "I thought we'd lose anyway" card after that game. Sorry, you don't get to play that card. So.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, I'm literally I'm at a loss for words here. That game aged me more than almost any other game I mean, I'm smiling when I say this, but I've been saying all season, we never know what Alabama team is going to show up week to week. All right.
I mean, there's about 6 different versions that could show up. So.
There is. Is it going to be the kind of Alabama that is kind of dominating a Mercer level team? Is it going to be the on-field monster that absolutely dominated Ole Miss? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the team made of fall apart that lost to Texas A&M? So yeah, it was it was quite the emotional roller coaster last night, and I
mean, it was worse than Rocky Block as far as the up and down.
Yeah.
I mean, I was drained after the Rocky Block game, but then last night topped that. I didn't think that would ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say this 6 years on. No, God, not 6 years on. Longer than that.
12.
12. Yeah, 12 years. To look in the rearview mirror and say, yeah, but Rocky Block was fun and we won. Maybe 12 years from now, we'll say that about this. Right now, it's still, despite the victory, it is still,
This ranks up there with the kick and wrong way bow.
I'm hoping that Gary Danielson will stop talking about the kick six now and start talking about his phantom 40 seconds that he decided to come up with.
Yeah. This deletes the kick six. I'm sorry, Auburn fans. That's how it goes. This deletes kick six.
What is this that you're? I don't recall a game called kick six, so I don't know what you're talking about.
It's fan fiction. Don't worry about it, John. It's just
Okay.
It's just a scary campfire story that some Auburn enthusiasts like to tell to try and frighten us. But let's not talk about their weird fantasy stories. Let's talk about this weird box score. So yesterday, Bryce Young, 25 for 51, 317 yards, averaged 6.2 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, QBR of 66.4. Rushing, B-Rob, 16 carries, 71 yards, averaging 4.4, long of 37. God bless him for that. Trey Sanders, 10 for 23, long of 7. However, he had all 23 of his yards obliterated by Bryce Young's 11 carries for negative 23 yards. So our overall was 37 rushes, 71 yards, and average 1.9.
I felt like that negative number for Bryce Young would have been more than 23, considering the number of times he got sacked.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised by the relatively low number there, and I'm gonna share I don't know what happened with ESPN's software, but there's a little Easter egg coming up, guys. I think you'll get a kick out of this. Mechie, 13 for 150, long of 27. Ja'Cory Brooks, 2 for 49, 1 touchdown, long of 28. Jamison Williams, 2 for 43, long of 34. B-Rob, 3 for 29, long of 17. Cameron Latu, 1 for 14. Same for Jaleel Billingsley. Trey Sanders, 2 for 12, long of 11. And my man, arguably one of 2 or 3 heroes of this ballgame, Slade Bolden, 1 for 6 for a touchdown. Slade the Blade. All of you Slade haters who still can't let go of one dropped pass all the way back at the beginning of the season can shut your damn mouths. All right. We had 2 fumbles. Recovered them both. Okay, so defense. The defense balled out last night. Look.
Oh, Lord, did they?
When I was twisting,
yes, they did.
When I was twisting that. Thank you. That goes up on the screen, William Sims. Thank you. Future Bill Belichick weapon, Slade Bolden. Yeah, you watch out for Slade. He's going to be catching some Super Bowl TD passes from Mac Jones. Anyway, our defense balled out. I was twisting that dish towel in my hands watching this game last night and saying, there's not going to be a high tide. There's not going to be a low tide. There's not going to be an elephant stomp. This whole thing sucks. Okay, well maybe I can say something good about the defense, and I can. Henry Toto, 9 tackles, 6 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Will Anderson, 7 with 6 solo, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss. Jordan Battle, 6, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss. DeMarco Helms, 6, 3 solo, got an assist on a tackle for loss. Christian Harris, 5 tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. Brian Branch, 4 tackles, all of them by his lonesome, with 1 tackle for loss. Josh Jobe, 4 tackles, 3 solo, 1.5 tackles for a loss. Fedarian Mathis, 3, 2 solo, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for a loss. Kool-Aid McKinstry. You want to talk about a game hero. Kool-Aid. 2 tackles, 2 by his lonesome, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss. LeBrian Ray, 2 tackles, 2 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. Tim Smith, 2 tackles, both were solos. Daniel Wright, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss. Jamison Williams, 1 tackle, 1 solo. Justin Uboigbe, 1 tackle, 1 solo. Now, the reason I went through this whole spiel was because the ESPN software threw up and notes that Devonta Smith had 1 tackle.
I saw that. I was having flashbacks. I'm like, what? I thought he was out of eligibility.
I would not have been surprised if Nick had him suit up last night, all things considered. So
you skipped my boy Dallas Turner, though.
did I? Oh my gosh! Okay.
He's
He had a
he's
monster
really
game.
come on. Yeah, I mean, he's turning into a real asset here late in the season. I'd love to see it.
Yes, I agree with
And
you.
I will say this: Will Anderson should have been wearing an Auburn uniform last night as much as he was in their backfield. He lived in the Auburn backfield all night. He was a terror.
Yeah, that was something else. So let's see. Josh Jobe, 1 pick. Thank you, Josh. Mechie had 1 kick return for 13. Slade, a punt return for 6. Will Reichert, perfect last night. Thank you, Will. And poor James Burnip. James Burnip was the second largest yard gainer for Alabama last night. If you can consider that advancing the ball, 7 punts, 263 yards, average 37.6, long of 46.
I will call him an unsung hero. He came in after the first field goal attempt where the snap was fumbled. He came in and he was the holder the rest of the game and did well. So he's an unsung hero.
Absolutely. So apparently I need to shut up and pay more attention to actual Alabama information. We do have a defensive back named Devonta Smith. I am not kidding you guys. This Devonta Smith is a fresh. He hails from Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had a Devontae Smith, but why was I thinking he was coming in next year?
Yeah, I completely blindsided by that. This is my Alan Partridge moment. If you guys are familiar with the British radio sitcom, but we actually do have another Devonta Smith. See, college football. That's what we do. We just go out and make more. We find more. We don't rebuild. We reload. But anyway, so that's the tale of the tape. That's how the game broke down. That's not how I broke down, because that was frequent crying is how I broke down. I'll tell you this. Looking at high tide, low tide, elephant stomp, and so on. I promised Bama Bruce over on the Discord, the RBR Discord, that I would not go hard in the paint against the refs.
I didn't.
Sweet Jesus, we played against 15. It was 11-15. Even Bama Bruce was like, "Yeah, we played 11 against 15 last night." In the comments, so pick your poison, guys. Pick your poison. on how awful the refereeing was. And if you're an Auburn fan and you happen to stumble upon this podcast, or maybe you listen anyway for Schadenfreude or whatever, shut up. I never want to hear from you people again about, oh, we get bad calls too. No, you don't.
Yeah, what was the total yardage on penalties? 126 yards or something?
Yes.
129 yards.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
We got penalized. Go ahead.
Auburn had 159 yards of offense for the entire game, but the refs had 129 yards against Alabama.
Yeah.
So the refs did almost as well as Auburn.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there were two egregious penalties that, the non-pass interference early in the game, which was obviously, pass interference. And then, the late hit on the QB, that was
not a late hit.
Not, I mean, technically no. I mean, but it is what it is. I don't like complaining about the refs, even though I do it all the time. But that's the refs' fault for making stupid calls. So,
yeah. We didn't get ref balled hard, but they seemed to be very particular about their selection of penalties, if you know what I'm saying.
What you're saying is that Yellowwood check was good yesterday. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can tell when that Yellowwood check bounces because they will occasionally get a call against them. But yesterday, that Yellowwood check was good.
That check was good as gold. So
I'm going to tell you what, I'm still in shock because up until a minute ago when you said high tide, low tide, I forgot we even did that.
I know, I'm staggering all over my notes today. I'm like, oh yeah, we do that. And I really, folks, Jess is having technical issues. Her computer died and her phone reception is apparently not great. But she was like, I don't know. She was telling me on Discord, if I can be on the chat, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do stats. I'm just a ball of like unbridled joyous nerves right now. And I'm like, look, just come celebrate, revel with us. 'Cause God knows we're swerving all over the road. If there were if there were internet highway patrol, they'd pull us over and make us take a field sobriety test this morning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm on my fourth cup of coffee, but I don't feel any different than I did after the game last night. It's just ridiculous.
Oh yeah. I had this this holiday cordial that some dear friends of mine gave me, and it's like it was like a pint bottle with coconut rum and some of the milkshake concoction in there. I didn't feel it. I am usually a girl drink drunk. I drank. I'm like, so what? And my body was like, yeah, no, nothing's slowing you down there, Tweety Bird. But we got it. We got to talk high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp. High tide, defense. Look, you can call the first half of the game, first quarter of the game, whatever you want, boring. Our defense saved our bacon yesterday. Look, we came back in the fourth quarter and in overtimes and won that game in spectacular fashion. But let me tell you something. All the comeback in the world in the fourth quarter would have not saved us if our defense hadn't balled out. High tide defense. Low tide. Oh. Let me just let me just say this before I move on to Elephant Stomp. Low tide, yes. Elephant Stomp
Good
moment.
answer.
You know what I'm going to pick for my Elephant Stomp moment. It's a tie. It's the winning 2-point conversion and Slade's catch. I'm sticking my tongue out at you Slade haters. That's my Elephant Stomp moments.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. High Tide definitely was the defense. The front seven, especially, Auburn had nothing running the ball. We didn't have much, but at least we had a little bit.
Yeah.
And Low Tide was the first 58 minutes whenever the offense had the ball. I mean, they couldn't do anything. But I'm going Elephant Stomp. I'm going with that just beautiful, artistic, Picasso-esque route that Mechie ran for the 2-point to win it.
Mm-hmm.
That was just, I mean, that was gorgeous.
Well, my High Tide is that Ja'Cory Brooks touchdown catch. This is a kid that hadn't been on the field nearly as much as he probably could have been. He's been sitting behind some seniors. And to make that catch in that situation for that guy, it was beautiful. I mean, it was a great catch. He had to work hard to get it and get his body around and then hold on to it while the ball was below him and he was going down to the ground. That was a pro catch. That was an NFL level catch. And I still have to apologize one more time for scaring my daughter when it happened. I didn't mean to yell that loud, sweetie. But it was a good moment. Low Tide, the first 3 quarters of offense. By the time our offensive line started getting it together and started blocking them, the offense was so out of sync, it took them basically half the fourth quarter to just get any kind of rhythm back. And we started moving the ball in the fourth quarter and went for it on 4th down a couple of times and didn't get it. Some Bill O'Brien bad play calling. He was telegraphing it.
Fire Bill O'Brien.
And yeah. And we thought we had to go for it and we should have taken the points. And if we had taken the points, we wouldn't have had to go into overtime. But the first 3 quarters of offense, they stank up the joint.
It was offensive.
It was definitely offensive. Yes, it was. And my Elephant Stomp, instead of giving you a moment, let me give you some numbers.
All right.
6 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, 40 rushes for 22 yards, and 137 yards passing with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Defense showed up and they played and they dominated. Auburn's offense dominated the first half and well into the third quarter. But Alabama stayed the whole game and into overtime. And that is my Elephant Stomp because we stomped their offense into a mud hole. And that was a thing of beauty.
That is a fine Elephant Stomp, sir.
Yeah, so question for you guys. Were you more elated last night after the game-winning 2-point conversion or 2nd and 26?
That's a tough call with this season.
Can I tell you my 2nd and 26 moment?
Sure.
All right, my daughter. And you guys are aware I have a daughter, right? I probably
no, really? I had no idea.
She was 6 months old. We were living in a little house in South Carolina, and it's about 12:30 in the morning there. By the time that game got into overtime,
mm-hmm.
and Mama and daughter are both conked out upstairs, and I'm downstairs, and I'm a guy who coaches I don't coach from the couch. By the time I'm in coaching mode, I've got my finger up where I'm tapping the TV. And that's where I was in that game. I was standing directly in front of the big screen. And that play happened, and I take a deep breath, getting ready to yell out the war cry. Oh, I've got a 6-month-old asleep upstairs. So I mean, I do the. Does anybody remember the Willie Mays Hayes dance when he made the team in
Yes.
Major League? I did that dance silently in my socks.
That's almost better than you screaming your head off.
And
that is better.
And doing the silent yes and the silent war cry. And I celebrated at about 2 decibels because I was not waking that little kid up because I did not want to hear that. But that's how I celebrated second 26. This time I startled her twice. I startled her also when we made that second 2-point conversion. But she looked at me. It's okay, Daddy. That wasn't that loud. The second time. So I've had to learn voice discipline over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it was a toss up. It was a toss up for me. It's hard to say which one I felt more relief over. It was just, I mean, it was an instant classic. Unfortunately, it took 58 minutes for us to get to the point to where I had something to celebrate. So,
but it's always fun to break George's heart. I mean,
true.
I don't know. There's something special about breaking George's heart. Auburn just gets salty.
Yeah, that's a tough call for me because look. We need to be very realistic. We need to manage our expectations about what's coming next week. This season for me, beating Auburn in such an epic, janky but epic fashion is probably gonna be the high water mark for us, just in terms of overall victory. If we get all the breaks in the world and beat Georgia next week, I may reassess. For right now, for 2021, I'm saying 3rd and 2. Should we call it 3rd and 2? I feel like 3rd and 2 is an appropriate appellation for that for that play because we get 2nd and 26.
Well, it's 3rd and 3, right?
Well,
is it?
I mean the points.
Oh, the points. Yeah. Okay.
The points. But I'm living in the moment, guys. I'm living in the moment, and I'm saying that was the greatest thing I've seen. Does it stack up bigger? Probably not. I mean, last night gets us bragging rights in the state. 2nd and 26 was something that defined the careers of 2 great NFL players, a future Heisman Trophy winner. Created an indelible mark on college football history, being as it was not just a national championship game, a national championship game in overtime. I tend to think in the overall 2nd and 26 is still pretty damn epic, which doesn't take anything at all away from BRYCE and his absolutely never say die comeback kid performance yesterday. So with that said, believe it or not, I am just getting this in across the wire, gentlemen. There were other college football games played yesterday. But before we get to those, let's talk a little trivia. And let me see here. I lost
Yeah, I don't remember us having a discussion about the trivia question.
I came up with never fear. Your leerless feeder has come up with a trivia question today. But Last week's trivia question was Birmingham native Jack Crow coached at Arkansas from 1990 to midway through 1992. Upon his firing, who was named interim head coach of the Razorbacks? And the answer was Joe Kynes. That is a very obtuse question. Nobody got that one. I wouldn't have gotten that one. So here's a softball for you guys on the morning after the Iron Bowl. So I'm sure many of us watching well into the fourth quarter thought that this would be some 7-0 or 10-0, just slap fight that would see like a baseball score level shutout. And you might have said, God, this has got to be the lowest scoring Iron Bowl ever. Not so. Not so. So, the trivia question is, what is the lowest scoring Iron Bowl ever? What was the score? When was the game? And who won it? So what year, what score, and who was the winner? So that spares me people jumping in and just saying, oh, it was...
yeah, I have no idea.
So
I'm going to take a stab and say that it was a long, long time ago, but I have no idea.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm without giving anything away, I think the answer is going to lie back into the mid-60s, mid to late 60s.
Okay. Well, as always, if between now and the end of the show, our esteemed listeners are able to come up with it, you can put it in the comments. And if you're right, you get the shout out next week. So, and if you're listening at some point during the week and you're like, oh, I know that, leave it in the comments for the video. Engage us. Leave comments on the videos, and if you get it, you get it. And if not, next week, well, we'll have another one for you. So with that said, let's talk about the rest of the nation.
Yay. SEC played football yesterday. Other than the Iron Bowl, well, he had an early Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving, like we always do. Ole Miss looks like they're gonna end up ranked in the top 10, which is gonna end up being Bama's best win, I think. So far, right? We can be hopeful for next week. Arkansas beat Missouri. They're going to stay in the top 25, which is good. Florida pulled out a win against Florida State. Georgia had another cupcake, 45-0 over Georgia Tech. Poor Georgia Tech. Tennessee beat Vanderbilt. So good on them, I guess. Josh Heupel's actually done quite well with them. I don't know what happened to A&M, but they lost to LSU. I did not get to watch that game. I did read a little recap this morning, but yeah, so that's not a good look for Jimbo. Of course, he's supposed to go coach LSU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kentucky beat Louisville and whatever they call that game, and Clemson beat the mighty South Carolina Gamecocks 30-0. So Clemson's going to end the year ranked. Who would have said that? But
now, did they beat the Cocks hard?
Cocks were a bit soft in that game.
Okay, so they didn't stiffen up.
No,
okay.
There were no stiffening of the Cocks. So. So that's your quick and dirty SEC rundown, because honestly, I watched the Iron Bowl yesterday. I watched part of the Ohio State Michigan game to begin with, and then I had to go do family Christmas decorating stuff. So really, just the Iron Bowl was all I got to see. So, John, you want to carry us through the rest of what happened yesterday?
All right, well, I'll take you through the top 25. So we've already talked about Georgia. They had a light scrimmage against the Fighting Engineers of Georgia Tech, 45-0. Nothing to see here. Although I must say that as many cupcakes as Georgia has had this year, they have to worry about being on insulin, I think. Ohio State, the Wolverines bulldozed the Buckeyes yesterday, 42-27. Cade McNamara was 13 for 19 for 159 yards and a pick for Michigan, but Hassan Haskins ran for 160 yards and 5 touchdowns. And Michigan ran for nearly 300 yards total. On the Ohio State side, C.J. Stroud was 39 of 49 for 394 yards and 2 touchdowns, but Ohio State was held to 64 yards rushing. Michigan ended up controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides the whole game to get their first win against the Buckeyes since 2011, and only the third win against Ohio State this century, this millennium. Makes it even sound worse.
Couldn't happen to a nicer group of guys.
Yeah, but Michigan plays Iowa for the Big Ten championship next week. Alabama escaped Jordan-Hare with a 24-22 overtime win. Cincinnati, they beat Eastern Carolina 35-13. ECU was up 3-0 after the first quarter, but Cincy scored 21 in the second. Their special teams blocked a field goal and returned it for a touchdown in the fourth to extend that lead and scored another touchdown after that. And they play Houston in for the AAC championship next week. That'll be the best game. That'll probably be the best team they've played since Notre Dame. And it's interesting to see how they're going to do in that one. They haven't had a lot of competition in the last few weeks, so we'll see what they do. And of course, Michigan, we know that the Fighting Khakis beat OSU 42-27. Notre Dame, the Brawling Celtics of Notre Dame defeated the Red Trees of Stanford 45-14. Notre Dame jumped out to a 24-0 lead at halftime and cruised to a win over the first team that beat Oregon, but then they promptly forgot to play football for the rest of the season. So Notre Dame, they're not in a conference, so they can't play a conference championship game. Their regular season is done. We'll see where they end up. Let's see where we are. Oklahoma State, the Cowpokes beat the Dirt Burglars 37-33.
You've been waiting all week to say Dirt Burglars, haven't you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've been waiting a while. That's not even my worst. Just stay tuned. They get better as we go. Because I after the game, I went straight for the cinnamon whiskey, the Fireball. And I'm like, well, no, wait a minute. I got to do this top 25 thing. So I backed off to white wine. But I think I've started feeling its effects later on in the thing because I got a little weird. But we'll let you decide. Anyway, Oklahoma, they muffed a punt on their own 5 with 9:43 left in the game, and Oklahoma State punched in 3 plays later. And then they held Oklahoma the rest of the way. Oklahoma State quarterback Spencer Sanders was he threw for 214 touchdowns, a touchdown, and 2 picks, but he also ran for 93 yards and a touchdown. Their quarterback uses his legs a bit. Weird. No, you could do that. Oklahoma quarterback Caleb Williams was 20 of 39 for 3 touchdowns, and running back Kennedy Brooks ran for 139 yards. There were some special team fireworks other than a muff punt. Oklahoma returned a punt. The returner, Justin Burrows, ran one back. Oklahoma State had a kickoff return for 100 yards. That was Brennan Presley taking it back. And the Oklahoma State plays Baylor in the Big 12 championship next week. Baylor, they pulled out a squeaker with a capital squeak against Texas Tech, 27-24. They had a 27-17 lead with 7 minutes left in the game after a 9-yard Blake Shapen TD pass to Ben Sims, but 2 plays later, Red Raider tight end Travis Kuntz took a screen pass 75 yards to get the Fighting Dust Bowls to within 3. And I just want to read this game. Red Raider tight end Travis Kuntz took a screen pass 75 yards to the house.
I wasn't aware that was allowed.
What's a screen pass? I do not
What's
know
a
what
tight
this
end?
is. I mean, I got to recheck the rule book after this, fellas.
I think a screen
If
pass
they
is
got
when you lose your temper and throw something at your TV.
my okay. That was a temptation a couple of times yesterday, but
That's why I was holding the puppy.
we just won't even talk about that. I am not shelling out extra bucks this week, and it was a close call. But let's see. Texas Tech got the ball back with just under a minute left, but they missed a 53-yard field goal as time expired. Baylor quarterback Blake Shapen was 20 of 34 for 254 and 2 TDs, while running back Abram Smith had 30 carries for 117 and a TD. The Texas Tech quarterback was 15 of 23 for 262 yards and 2 touchdowns in the loss. And Baylor again takes on Oklahoma State for the Big 12 championship. Ole Miss left Mississippi State unable to make a custard because they lost the Egg Bowl, winning 31-21. I told you, it gets weirder.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma lost Bedlam 37-23. We just talked about that. Oregon, they won the Civil War, which will confuse a lot of historians, winning against Oregon State 38-29.
That's an odd name for that game. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, the Beavers took a pounding for 3 quarters, with Oregon leading 31-9 with 10 minutes left, but scored 3 touchdowns in garbage time to make the score more respectable. I notice you guys are really quiet now. Oregon quarterback Anthony Brown was 23 of 28 for 275 and 2 touchdowns, and had 14 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown, while Oregon State quarterback Chance Nolan was 21-39 for 308 and 2 touchdowns and a pick. Michigan State, they hung on to beat Penn State 30-27. And if you
Go
got
Sparty.
To see any of the if you guys got to see the highlights, this was a snowy game in East Lansing, and you can see Penn State players making snow pedophiles during warm-ups, where Sparty jumped out to a 14-0.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
I'll give it a minute.
Whoa. I mean, he's not wrong, folks.
Should I not have said that? Was that wrong?
Anyway, moving right along.
So Sparty jumped out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter on the legs of Kenneth Walker III and the arm of Peyton Thorne, but the Nittany Lions came back to tie the game on a 30-yard pass from Sean Clifford to Jahan Dotson. The game was back and forth until the Spartans finally took a 30-20 lead thanks to a 1-yard run and a 20-yard TD pass from Peyton Thorne. Quarterback had a pretty good game there. But the Nittany Lions came back to score a touchdown with 43 seconds left. They just couldn't recover the onside kick. Peyton Thorne was 19 of 30 for 268 yards, 2 TDs and a pick, and a rushing touchdown, while Kenneth Walker III had 30 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown. They've got a pretty good running back there, I think. Brigham Young, in some Pac-12 after dark action, they were up 21-13 at the half, but USC scored 18 in the second half to go up 31-28 early in the fourth. And I did stay up and watch this game, guys. The Cougs came back and scored on a Jackson Chesney 7-yard touchdown run with 3:57 left, and USC drove down to the BYU 15, but a 4th down pass from Jackson Dart to Gary Bryant Jr. came up a yard short, and Brigham Young ran out the clock. So they had a bit of a struggle win against a sort of down year. Can you still call it a down year? I mean, this is during a down decade.
Yeah.
We'll call it that. So BYU had a struggle win against USC last night, but they managed to hold off and come away with a win. Wisconsin was axed by Minnesota to lose the Paul Bunyan Trophy 23-13. Quarterback Tanner Morgan was 11 for 16 for 199 yards, a TD, and a pick six early on. Running back Kai Thomas ran for 55 yards and a TD for the Yellow Rodents, while the slightly larger Rodent quarterback Graham Mertz was 21 of 38 for 171 yards, no TDs, and a pick. That was an ugly game, and they don't have the snowy Big 12 game big excuse here because they played indoors. That was just an ugly game. And we know Texas A&M gave one away against Coach O. Iowa mounted a fourth quarter comeback to beat mighty Nebraska 28-21. The Shuckers of Corn had a 21-9 lead going into the fourth quarter, but Iowa blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown, sacked Husker quarterback Logan Smothers for a safety, kicked the field goal on the next possession to tie the game at 21-all, then scored a touchdown on a 75-yard drive on 6 running plays to take the lead. That's a flex move right there. Iowa quarterback Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla had combined for 178-yard passing with no TDs. And Tyler Goodson had 23 carries for 156 yards, no TDs. Quarterback Spencer Petras scored Iowa's only offensive touchdown on a 2-yard run. So this was not a pretty game. Nebraska's quarterback Logan Smothers was kind of worse. He completed 16 of 22 for 109 yards and a pick, but he did have 64 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Pitt, they squeezed the Syracuse Orangemen 31-14. Heisman candidate Kenny Pickett was 28 of 38 for 209 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. And the Pitt D held Syracuse to 25 yards rushing on 30 carries. Pretty good run defense there, guys. Wake Forest beat Boston College 41-10. The Demon Deacon quarterback, well, let me just say, I may have run into a few Demon Deacons back during my church administration days, but that's an aside, guys. Their Demon Deacon quarterback, Sam Hartman, was 20 of 32 for 232 yards and 3 and a pick, along with 51 yards and a TD on the ground. And the Wake defense held the Eagles offense to 3 completions for 19 yards passing and 182 yards of total offense. Yuck. Utah, the Utes beat Colorado 28-13. Utah quarterback Cameron, my little blue pill keeps things rising, was 14 of 23 for 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Well, Tavion Thomas ran for 142 yards and a touchdown, and TJ Pledger ran for another 103, while the Utes had held Colorado to 148 yards of total offense. And notice I did not do a what is a Ute joke one time during that part. And that is a personal record because I cannot say Utes without going back to what is a Ute. Sorry, and I just ruined it right there, didn't I?
The 2 Utes.
All right. Yeah. All right. So NC State, the Fighting Zach Galifianakis, figure that one out for me. Sneaked by North Carolina's Sticky Souls, 34-30. The Tar Heels got down 14-0, but came back to take a late 30-21 lead on a Grayson Atkins 50-yard field goal with 2 minutes and 12 seconds left. But then Wolfpack quarterback Devin Leary tossed a 64-yard pass to Amika Emezi, who got behind the North Carolina secondary completely. He was all alone back there on the second play of the next drive. Then recovered an onside kick, and after a slew of penalties by both sides, North Carolina scored on a 24-yard connection from, you guessed it, Devin Leary to Amika Emezi. Leary was 19 of 30 for 247 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Emezi had 5 catches for 112 and 2 touchdowns, the heroes of the game. Tar Heels quarterback Sam Howell was 14 of 26 for 147 yards and a TD and a pick. And he also ran for 98 yards and 2 TDs. And I watched the second half of that game. And let me tell you, boys, quarterback Sam Howell is a hard guy to bring down. He's a big fella. I mean, he's like a slightly slower. Who's the feller? Tim Tebow. He's like, yeah, he's a bigger, slower Tim Tebow.
Does he cry as much?
Never got to find out.
Okay.
He doesn't seem to be quite as fiery, but yeah, he's a big dude that likes to run over defensive backs if he can. San Diego State busted the Boise State Broncos 27-16. Boise State had a 16-3 lead in the second quarter, but the Aztecs scored 24 unanswered points to pull away in the second half because they brought in backup quarterback Jordan Brookshire late in the first half, and was 11 for 15 for 192 yards and a touchdown, while running for 46 yards and another touchdown to spur their comeback. Boise State quarterback Hank Bachmeier was 21 of 40 for 222 yards with 2 TDs and 2 picks. And moving along to Texas San Antonio, they fumbled away the game to the North Texas Spray Cleaners, 45-23. The Roadrunners lost 3 fumbles early in the rainy game, and North Texas ran for 340 yards and 6 touchdowns. Running back Ikeyaka Ragsdale had 20 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, while DeAndre Torrey had 23 carries for 108 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'd say that they had a pretty strong running game yesterday against Texas San Antonio. And Clemson.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I truly admire your restraint not making the University of North Texas joke. I mean that's some pretty low hanging fruit, but you did it. You got past it. Their initials. UNT.
I'm not even going there. No. I did refer to the Mean Green as the Spray Cleaners, and just kind of went over everyone's head.
Sorry,
but that's okay.
Sorry. I need another.
I know I'm throwing them out there pretty fast today.
They're rapid fire, and it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Clemson. Will Shipley spurred Clemson to a 30-0 win over the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks were. You could tell the talent. The field looked tilted to one side. The Clemson was just bigger and better. Mm. They've got the men's out there, and the Gamecocks don't. And that's just the way it is. Clemson's actually finally playing pretty good, but in case nobody noticed, they are shut out of the ACC championship game. They didn't even win their division.
Sorry, continue.
That's all right. So Houston, they tamed UConn 45-17. Mighty UConn. Coug quarterback Clayton named that tune, was 21 of 30 for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns, while the Huskies, by the end of the game, were down to their third-string walk-on freshman quarterback after the quarterback Steven Krajowski and Michael Leon both left with injuries. And I don't think those were the first quarterbacks to be injured for the Huskies there. I think they're slightly depleted from their already depleted roster. They're not good, and I wondered how they scored 40-17 on Houston, and how that bodes for their AAC championship game against Cincy. And then Arkansas was upgraded from bologna to pulled pork with a 34-17 win over Missouri. They are no longer the Boston butt of everyone's jokes in the SEC West. And I'm
nice.
All right, boys, deep breath. Let's go right into buy or sell here with the top 10.
Oh, yay.
Okay, number one. All right, and I'm gonna be quiet and let you guys talk for this one. Number one, surprise, Georgia.
Yeah, I'll buy some Georgia at number one. I just don't see. So Bama has the ability to beat Georgia next week, but I don't have confidence that the team that's needed to show up will show up. Unfortunately, trying to temper my expectations, like Bill said.
Bill?
Yeah, what can I say? Buying Georgia at 1. There's no denying it. I mean, they are the standard this season. So yeah, buying Georgia.
So we're buying Georgia knowing that the stock is probably it can't rise any higher. So all you're going to get out of this is dividends. So we're looking at a blue blood stock here at this point, I think, here, fellas. All right.
Yeah.
Number 2, I struggled a little bit with this, but I think number 2 right now is Alabama.
I mean, I want to believe, right? Isn't that what Fox said?
Yeah.
I want to believe. But I tend to try to not make emotional decisions when it comes to stock picks. I would hold at 2.
I'll buy a little at 2. I'm not going to sink the entire family fortune into it, but it's an emotional buy for me, so I'm buying a little bit at 2.
All right.
I
fair
know what's
enough.
coming next week. I'm still high on that win last night.
I wouldn't have. That was, to me, that was more of a relief win than a high. But my thing is, I just couldn't move Michigan up to number 2. Cincinnati's definitely not a number 2, so I put Michigan at number 3. And so I don't think there's going to be a lot of argument there, unless you want to move Michigan up to number 2. So tell me what you think about Michigan.
I'm buying Michigan. They may have kicked Ohio State out of the playoffs, and that makes me happy. So,
You got Michigan at 3?
Yeah, I've got Michigan at 3.
Yeah, I'll buy some Michigan at 3.
Yep.
Mainly because I don't know who else could be 3 at this point. But
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I understand. So I put Cincinnati at 4.
So Cincinnati plays Houston next week for their championship game. If Cincinnati beats Houston, that will be their best win of the season, because Notre Dame's a fraud. So I'd almost take Ohio State over Cincy. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think Ohio State's a better team than Cincinnati. So if I owned Cincy at 4, I'd probably hold it, but I'm not going to buy any. And then Bill's going to come be like, give me all the Cincy you got.
all right. So this is a complex answer. I am holding on I am holding and recommending we hold on any Cincy purchases till next week. See, I got you, Bo. We're holding on any Cincy purchases until next week. But with that said, I think Ohio State has been a pumped up, ready to dump stock. They were last season. I mean, you want to talk about an artificially pumped up stock? A 6-game season?
Yeah, they were
State.
They were GameStop last season.
Yeah, without all the charm, without all the internet day traders giving it a folksy charm. So my thought is, first of all, Cincy is the best team in Ohio right now. But I want to see how they do next week. So for the first week, all season, since we've been doing this, I'm going to say hold on Cincy. Don't sell. Just wait till we see what they do next week. That's my thoughts on Cincy.
Okay. So it sounds like you kind of believe at 4.
Yeah,
and but that may be you think that may be their ceiling. All
maybe.
Right. I almost put them at number 5 because number 5, Oklahoma State, they have a defense that can make people look bad, and they're pretty good. So tell me what you think about Oklahoma State at number 5.
Yeah, I'll buy some Oklahoma State at 5. I would have bought it at 4.
Mullet futures are huge, so yeah, I'm buying.
All right. And I did this at midnight, and at the cold light of day, I might have re-ranked these. But yeah, I have Oklahoma State at 5, but I have Ohio State at 6. I think they're the best 2-loss team out there right now.
Selling Ohio State, sorry.
I mean, I'd probably hold them at 6. After I just said that I like them better than Cincy, but that's more of a waiting for the earnings report to come out next week. But yeah, I'd hold them at 6, I think.
So what you're waiting for is other people's earnings report to come out, because Ohio State doesn't have a report coming out next week.
Correct, but yeah, I think they're definitely. I think 6 is probably their top. I would think it would take a lot for them to go up.
Cincinnati would have to lose. Oklahoma State would have to lose. Because honestly, I think Ohio State's better than both of those. But
I don't know that Ohio State's better than Oklahoma State. That would be an interesting game to see.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I still have to say I haven't figured Ohio State out yet. I mean, they're 2 games they've lost is because the teams just ran the ball on them. And I mean, Oregon.
Well, isn't that what Oklahoma State does?
Well, sorta.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out, is that a Big 12 running game or is that an actual real running game? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't think they would have too much trouble with, say, number 7 Ole Miss's running game. There's a running game. There's power running, and then there's the way Ole Miss runs, which is, it's speed. It's trying to get guys isolated and spreading it out and just trying to find that gap. Yeah. Whereas Michigan just lined up and ran over their butts. I mean, Michigan just powered them. And after, and the weird thing is Michigan lost to Michigan State. And then Ohio State just trucked Michigan State.
Yep.
And then the team that lost to Michigan State just came out and just powered Ohio State. So this has been the weirdest year for inconsistency. And not just, Alabama's been inconsistent, but there have been teams even more inconsistent. And I think Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State, all 3 have been showing that in spades. Which makes it really hard to do this.
They went 1-1 in the round robin, like kind of felt like they would. If Michigan State had a secondary, a pass defense of any semblance, then they may have come out on top in that round robin. But
yeah, that's true. So are we buying Ohio State at 6? Sounds like we are.
I'm not buying. I'm holding.
All right. You're holding? Fair enough. All right, number 7.
I'm holding at 6, yep.
All right, so Ole Miss right now is the second best 2-loss team in the country, as I see it, at number 7. Thoughts?
Yeah, I will hold Ole Miss at 7. I think that's about right. That feels like where they should be, so.
Yeah, I'm 100% in lockstep with Bo on this. Ole Miss has not, and I say this as an Alabama fan, Ole Miss has not shown consistency this season that makes them a buy that I can advise. So hold Ole Miss at 7. I think that is a perfect place for them. On the outside looking in, but just on the outside looking in.
Yeah, Ole Miss would be that, that first team in one of the first teams in the other New Year's Six bowls.
Yeah. Now I will root. Pardon me. I need more tea. I will root for Ole Miss wherever they go bowling, unless it's against us, which I don't think would happen, but. Weirder stuff has. Please continue.
All right. You're not going to like my number 8 pick, guys. I can tell you already. You're going to jump up and down and yell and scream and tell me how wrong I am. But at number 8, I've got Notre Dame.
Yeah.
No,
I'm hanging up now. Okay, so here's. Please explain to me why you think Notre Dame deserves to be in the top 10, much less number 8. What have they done? Their best win is against Wisconsin, who just lost to Minnesota. They lost to the one team that they played that had a pulse this year.
I don't disagree. They're hard to place.
No, they're very easy to place. Somewhere below 10. It's very easy to place them. And I'm not saying that they're not a decent team, but they're not top 10. They're not number 8. I would put at this point, even with the loss to LSU, I'd put Texas A&M over Notre Dame.
Now, Texas A&M, the thing is, with Texas A&M, they are so inconsistent. I mean, they'll have played lights out against Alabama. And then they go and who have they lost? They've lost, what, four games, right? They've lost 2.
Yeah, they lost 4 games. They lost to Arkansas and they lost to Mississippi State, which, rolled the dice on Mississippi State.
I can't. No, they've lost. Wait, 3 or 4. I thought they lost 4.
They did lose 4.
No,
they lost to LSU.
Yep.
LSU.
They lost to LSU last night. They lost to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and then Arkansas. Arkansas and Mississippi State were earlier, but they have lost to Ole Miss and LSU since then. They're too much of a wild card to me. I couldn't put them ahead of Notre Dame. I mean, they've probably played better competition. It's hard to get the data. I just don't have the right data points. I don't trust my data on Notre Dame. And
so I want you to listen. I want you to listen to this murderer's row of teams that Notre Dame has played since losing to Cincinnati: Virginia Tech, Southern Cal, North Carolina, Navy, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Stanford. Oh, and by the way, they struggled against North Carolina and Virginia Tech.
I told you weren't going to like it. I did say that. I prefaced the whole thing with saying you're not going to like this pick. And was I right or was I right?
No, you're right. And I'm sitting here fully aware that the arguments I'm making against Notre Dame are the same arguments that people can make about Alabama this season. The problem is Alabama played an SEC schedule against whatever that is Notre Dame has.
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, I probably could have put them behind number 9 Baylor. Absolutely. Baylor.
I mean, I don't know anything about Baylor, but sure, rank them ahead of Notre Dame.
But that's my number 9, and so I have Baylor at number 9. Tell me what you think. Are you buying or selling?
I will hold Baylor at 9 because I think that they're probably going to lose next week.
That's going to be a defensive game. Baylor doesn't have a very good offense, but they have a good defense. And I have the same problem as everybody else in the whole world. A good offense will catch my eye. Good defense sometimes is hard to see, and it makes the other team look like they're just playing sloppy. You have to watch it closely. So I expect that. I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth. This is weird. But I think that the Big 12 championship game is going to be a defensive game. And it's going to be low scoring. Did you guys ever expect to hear those words?
No. But I will say, if I can comment just real quick on Notre Dame.
Go for it.
Please.
Notre Dame is, for all their supposed blue-bloodedness and whatnot, Notre Dame gives off this and many, many, many seasons, going all the way back to 2013 as far as I'm concerned. Notre Dame gives off the vibe of one of those tech companies from like 1998 that had an initial IPO of, $100 million, $200 million, a party where like the band, an IPO party where the band playing is like, I don't know, just insert big splat, like they got Oasis to play their IPO party or something, right? And they issue like ridiculously expensive gift bags for all party goers, and then 6 months later you find out that like they're 30 employees and 25 of them have been laid off and the company's been bought by Yahoo. That's my feeling on Notre Dame as a stock, and I say sell them. They're fake. So I'm sorry. I miss the Notre Dame, and I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, both fought me so hard it felt like it was both of you talking, so I forgot and just skipped to the next one. So my apologies.
That's okay.
I think for me, I keep Notre Dame as high as they are because they have an Alabama legacy playing nose. Howard Cross III, his dad played tight end for Alabama in the late '80s, and I think I put him there to honor that. Okay, so tell me, what do you think about number 9 Baylor by underselling?
I'm going to admit a little bit of ignorance here. I haven't followed Baylor's arc that much. But if they're doing well enough to make it into the stock ticker, I'd say buy.
Well, they're playing in the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma State next week, so we'll get to find out a little bit next week's. And we might be able to talk a little bit more in depth about some of these top 25 scores next week because it's going to be a smaller slate. For the most part, I think I'm looking forward to next week. Although I'm dreading that Georgia game just a little bit, I must admit.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm not not really looking forward to it. Alabama has potentially the better offense. Georgia has potentially the better defense. So, although Alabama's defense has really come on here in the past few weeks, so peaking at the right time, I guess, for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're not there yet.
My fault. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me give you my number 10. We can talk about that, and then we'll move on into that because I do have some thoughts. Number 10, Oregon. And I had a hard time putting them there. I almost put Michigan State there. Didn't want to put Oklahoma there because screw Oklahoma.
I would put Texas A&M there. I would sell all the Oregon I have. And I know you guys are like, what? You just lost
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is a top 10 team. Okay, I know at 8-4. Texas A&M is the best 8-4 team. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Well, that gets them into the top 25, not the top 10.
I'm saying. Well, I mean, I tend to look at a lot of advanced stats and not polls and rankings. Texas A&M has been a solid top 10 team this year, based on advanced stats, even when they weren't ranked. So,
and as good as he played against Alabama, their quarterback, I can't trust him to. You can't put the game on his shoulders. He just can't do it. All right. Anyway, Oregon at number 10. Buy or sell?
Sell. They had their moment in the sun earlier this season. I'm not sold on Oregon, so I'll sell Oregon.
Fair enough. Well, let me ask you this: no 4-loss teams. Who would you put at number 10? You've got Michigan State. You've got Oklahoma. You got Brigham Young.
Oklahoma.
Probably Oklahoma.
You're much more impressed with Oklahoma than I am.
I mean, I don't. Okay, that's a begrudgingly. I got to pick somebody.
That's why I put Oregon there. But
I mean, how people look. I don't understand how people are using this year as like proof that we need a 12-team playoff. No, we need like a 2-team playoff. I mean, it's just been, I don't know. This year has been so crazy, with the exception of Georgia.
Inconsistency is the champion this year. Honestly, I think, and I'm going off track here, but I think, believe it or not, COVID, the lack of spring training, and everybody being shut out last year is rearing its ugly head this year, and you're seeing a lot of guys getting lots of playing time that aren't very well developed and are being wildly inconsistent.
Yeah,
and they're just not mentally there. That's what I think is happening this year. I'm blaming it on COVID, guys. This is the real COVID year. So that is my top 10. Such as it is, guys.
Such as it is. No, it's fine.
It's really hard
Well,
once you get past 3, right? I mean,
does anyone remember the last time that Georgia was a favorite against Alabama?
2008.
Nope.
No. When was it?
Remember, if it was up to everybody in that game, Alabama would be dead and buried.
2015.
Dead and gone.
Was it 2015?
That's right, 2015.
Oh, yeah,
I remember
I
Danielson came out in the opening chatter between him and Lundquist and said, well, Alabama can get back on their feet if they can get past Georgia, and frankly, I don't think they can. And then he ate those words. They were balled up, wrapped up in barbed wire, and shoved right down his throat because Alabama utterly destroyed Georgia.
So I happened to be in Seattle that week. My wife came out. It was our anniversary. She came out later in the week. And that Saturday, we decided we were going to go whale watching. So we went up and took a ferry out to almost.
Hey, I thought you were in. I thought you said you were in Seattle.
What did I say?
Oh, Fat Phil lives in Knoxville.
Huh?
You were whale watching.
Oh, Joe. Okay, gotcha. Well, there may have been another guy. Who knows?
I'm sorry.
But yeah, that's all right. But we were out in the ocean whale watching, and I was getting really, 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 really shoddy cell service. I would get about every 15 minutes, I'd get a ping off a tower and check the score, and then I just kept. I had to watch the game the next week off YouTube, but that was it was satisfying to check the game every 15 minutes and see that score piling up. That was nice. It made I could relax and watch whales that afternoon, so that was good.
So,
but here we go.
Look, I have no expectations for next week's game. I'm going to watch it, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about it. And I know that sounds dreadfully dull and just, but it's all I got at this point, guys. I mean, honestly, I think not in the way we won, but in that we won last night, I feel like was our high water mark as a team. Anything could happen next week. Anything could happen. It's going to be interesting to see if the line moves, to see if the FPI moves, to see what's going to happen. I mean, if first first 4 quarters Alabama shows up from last night's game, yeah, they're going to get blown out 45-0. If Ole Miss Alabama shows up, then we're going to play them to the blade, because Georgia is way better than Ole Miss. We're not going to romper stomp them like we did Ole Miss. If Texas A&M Alabama shows up, we'll get some points, but ultimately we will get steamrolled. I can't make any predictions or have any expectations beyond, yes, Alabama's playing next Saturday. With that information,
that's a pretty good prediction there, Bill.
They don't call me the best color man in the industry for nothing.
Thanks, Mr. Doyle.
So I just feel like, I mean, if you demanded, just put a gun to my head and said, no, give me some, I would say Alabama in the teens, Georgia in the 30s. I hate to do that. I hate to say that. I know the Tide is going to play their hearts out next week, but that's just kind of where I am right now. It is a 1-game season for us from now until January 2nd.
Remember, the last time Georgia played a defense like Alabama's, they didn't score an offensive touchdown.
True. So maybe this will make you feel a little better. Georgia obviously has the number 1 defense. They're giving up 230 yards per game. Alabama is number 7, giving up 294 yards per game. On the offensive side of the ball, Georgia is ranked 27 at 442 yards per game, and Alabama is currently 7th at 492. So it's, like I said, it's strength on strength next week. If the offense is clicking, I think they can score some points. I don't know if Georgia can score the points that they're going to need, assuming that Alabama's offense is playing. Now, if we have a bad offensive game like we did, several times this year, then yeah. So I'm kind of with Bill, and then I'm not making predictions. I just want to see what happens, and it's I'm just happy to be here, Mm-hmm. But we'll just have to wait and see and hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
I will say this: everything after the Auburn game this year is gravy. Oh yeah, we finished the regular season 11-1, and with the youth that we have on the offensive side of the ball, we have far exceeded my expectations. And the defense, last few games, with the exception of just a few plays, the defense have played really, really well. This game is going to come down to our offensive line against their defensive line. We have to hold our own. We don't have to dominate them. We don't have to blow them out of the water. We just got to stalemate them. If we can stalemate them, that front seven will be okay, and this game will be a very good game.
And I mean,
if our offensive line runs around looking like a chicken with their heads cut off, so mentally confused, we're not going to be in the game. It comes down to that.
Well, and then there's the other thing to think of is that Georgia's played a bunch of cupcakes the past couple of weeks, and Alabama has had two tough fought games. So,
are we hoping that Georgia's in a diabetic coma next week?
I mean, yeah, let's do that. Let's go for that. I mean, they haven't really been tested. Georgia has not faced an offense like they're going to see next week, assuming that it's clicking, right? They have the highest rated passing offense that Georgia has faced all year is somewhere in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to depend on, on which Alabama team shows up.
Now let's look at some hard numbers. Maybe, we can end on an up note. We can end on an up note today. And I want to run down some yards for you guys. And I say this is the guy who's like strumming Tom Petty's Free Fallin' as I trip out the airplane door, right? Let's just break something down a little. We don't do this, and I know we're running a little long today, but I wanna get some numbers out there, some actual numbers. So let's talk about Stetson Bennett to date. 105 of 163, 1730 yards, 17 TDs, 5 ints. His competition on our side of the line, 263 of 367, 3,584 yards, 38 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Bryce Young is objectively a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett. Let's look at the ground. White, 122 carries, 657 yards, 10 TDs. That's nice. Brian Robinson, 191 carries, 945 yards, 14 touchdowns. And now let's look at the receiving core. Does it get better for Georgia over there? No. Bowers, 34 receptions, 552 yards, 8 touchdowns. Jamison Williams, 59 receptions, 1,218 yards, and 13 touchdowns. So let's not go throwing ashes on our heads just yet, sports fans. We are a tough team. We can carry this game. If Alabama brings their A game, we can carry this ball game. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Closing thoughts, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Alabama has the ability to beat Georgia. Hopefully they have a good week and they learn the lessons that they need to learn from this very close squeaker of a win against Auburn. And I hope they just come in prepared. This would be one of those really be nice if we had an off week before this game, but fortunately this doesn't work out that way. And it sounds like we're going to be without B-Rob next week, which is concerning. Hopefully, knowing that that's going to be the case, Trey Sanders can get some good work in and start to trust his reconstructed hip. I'm just amazed he's playing at all.
No.
So, yeah, hope for the best.
I tell you what, like I said, anything after the Auburn game this year is gravy. I didn't expect them to really make the conference championship game. Maybe the championship. I didn't expect them to make the playoffs this year. I didn't think this was our year, not with all the youth on the offensive side. But if we, we're one game away, and if they can play their best game, I think we'll be there. They can beat Georgia. They just have to play their best game.
All right, folks. Well, there you have it, the tail of the tape. Until next week, roll damn Tide.